My name is ELD. Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering from ELD's Timeball Games in Bellingham, Mass. Here we have Phil on a white Eldrazi list. We'll see exactly how that is configured, if it's more just white Eldrazi or if it's Death and Tentacles. Pyle Souza, on the other hand, on a snow control build. SnOko is 4-color, relying on Arkham's Astrolabe to give it just perfectly smooth mana. And we've got a Chalice of the Void that's been Force of Willed, pitching Jace the Mind Sculptor. A second Chalice coming down. Really one of the most concerning cards in the deck. We see that's going to brick a Lightning Bolt for now. Luckily, there are a lot of ways of dealing with artifacts. This City of Traders doing some work. Now pushing out a Thought-Knots here. Eldrazi Temples making that City of Traders go to the bin. Going to the tank. And a Kolgan's Command being fired in response. It's going to be a 2-for-1, getting rid of a card from Phil's hand. That's a Wasteland. And now he can take a Snapcaster, a Fatal Push, or a Lightning Bolt. A fetch land would be an ideal draw here. And Leovold will be able to race to a degree, at least keep some pressure on. Ooh, another Thought-Knot. That takes the Fatal Push, and this is getting pretty bad. 4 damage coming in. Brainstorm. These Eldrazi threatening to wrap things up in just a couple of turns. Really thinking this through. We've got a Lightning Bolt is the sole card left in hand. Looks like there may be a 2-for-1 coming. Trading with Leovold and a Lightning Bolt to draw a card. Karakas allowing a card draw. Now Leovold not going to function as a blocker. What can he have to dig out of this situation? This is pretty grim. Plague Engineer would somewhat kind of stabilize. Make one of the Eldrazi's smaller. Trade with it. Jace the Mind Sculptor bounces one of them to draw a card. And that's going to do it. This Eldrazi deck up a game. We actually got a pretty good shot of the sideboard here. Chalice of the Void, a very dangerous card that shuts off so many of the efficient spells in the deck. Cards like Arkham's Astrolabe drawn late are really not much of an inconvenience to cast. You can just go ahead and cantrip, play that out. Very often the control list will have that extra mana and be able to just continue card drawing. Early game, of course, it's great for fixing your mana problems, but late game is just one of those cards that if you top deck, you just keep the ball rolling. Just keep on digging toward those optimal draws, things that are really powerful. Effects like Snapcaster, Oko, Jace the Mind Sculptor. Cards that just do a ton of work. We're talking at least 2-for-1s for the most part in this deck. There are a few single cards that exchange 1-for-1, but those are hyper efficient. Things like Lightning Bolt, Fatal Push, Angart's Rampage, and Tyrant Scorn are cards that have a lot of modes, a lot of options to them, so the versatility makes up for the fact that it's not actually a 2-for-1. But it can serve as a catch-all. And then, of course, Snapcaster Mage can really leverage those cards, getting double duty when you've got those really specific answers and you get to reuse them with Snapcaster Mage. Man, that is a way to put pressure on a matchup until it cracks. Plays like Colgan's Command to get back a Snapcaster Mage to get even more value, not uncommon. Force of Will. A little bit of assurance that the game won't go completely out of hand. Arkham's Astrolabe allows you to fetch basic lands, stopping Wasteland from being a total blowout, so good start so far, drawing a card. Once Upon a Time. An Eldrazi Temple. And Deafening Silence. A new addition from Throne of Eldraine. Potentially stopping multiple spells from being chained together. It is also an enchantment, meaning that Oko won't easily handle it. Here we have a Phyrexian Revoker, and that will stop the Arkham's Astrolabe. It's really not that big a deal. Oh, and he's going with Jace the Mind Sculptor. All right. I was going to say, it's really not a massive problem. Arkham's Astrolabe doesn't really get stopped by Revoker because part of the damage is the card drawing. And it looks like he's going to have an Oko. What's he going to do with it? Is he going to upgrade this Arkham's Astrolabe? No, he's making some food. See here some new whiteboard deck dividers that I've created. Those will be available on ELD's Time Vault games soon. They're right now in the prototype phase. Plague Engineer. Oh, whoa. That is brutal. This food being upgraded to an elk. Turning sideways. Those Revokers are KO'd. And Oko on an empty board. Get out of here. This is, for those who haven't played with Oko, I think you're in for some perspective changing. He is right at home in the most powerful formats, both Vintage and Legacy. Can use this guy to great effect. And he is going to take smaller threats and obsolete them by making 3/3s on the other side of things. He can make things like Thought-Knot Seer smaller if need be. And just food being cranked out here. Once Upon a Time being cast. Not as exciting. That first free one really is the most appealing thing about it, but we've got a Thought-Knots here being Force of Willed. It's not even entirely obvious that that was necessary. Oko feels an awful lot like playing multiple spells. Baleful Strix now. Again, a non-creature spell, so Deafening Silence not going to be interacting with that. Eldrazi Displacer gets Force of Willed, and Pile is Hellbent. Not a great time for Thorn of Amethyst. Really just going to be playing one card a turn, if that. Elko keeps the food party going. And Plague Engineer just totally fine turning sideways. Happy to trade with the Eldrazi. Thought Knot. Gets a Snapcaster Mage. Doesn't even look like there's any targets, perhaps? Oh, of course, he has Brainstorm. So Brainstorm costing 2. One of those is going to stay in hand. And this looks like it's going to be over fairly soon. Jace the Mind Sculptor, going to be 5 mana. He allows for a Brainstorm. Soon enough, he'll be able to start bouncing these Thought Knot Seers, if need be. So many Elks. This Plague Engineer fearlessly turning sideways. It actually may become a play to bounce the Plague Engineer with Jace and replay it. That would make these Eldrazi just 3/3s. Palace Jailer hits a Baleful Strix. And I'm not sure that's going to work out. That's going to force the trade with the Plague Engineer. Yeah, there we go. Leovold bouncing the Plague Engineer with Jace. And now Arkham's Astrolabe going to allow for black mana to cast the Plague Engineer, naming Eldrazi. And now they're just 3/3s. They don't stack up well against these elves. Able to draw 2 off of those triggers. This is gruesome. You do not want SnOko to be the Monarch, but that's exactly what's going to end up happening here. Piling on the loyalty. 13 loyalty on Oko. That is so much. And he just keeps cranking out the food. Pile playing very solid. I might have considered making that Arkham's Astrolabe a 3/3 at one point. But he's been able to do just fine, making food, then making it into an elk, back and forth, turn after turn. And he actually did need that black mana. To do both Leovold and the Plague Engineer. Turn probably would have been just fine, just getting out a Plague Engineer, to be honest. Maybe he would have been the Monarch a turn sooner. But still, overall, playing very, very well here against a variety of threats. Oko handling all of it. Plague Engineer getting picked up and put back down, getting the concession. And we're going into game number 3. I think there's 3 Plague Engineers at this point in this list. And the card is just phenomenal. Really crowded out Liliana in all incarnations, both the Last Hope and Liliana of the Veil. Liliana the Last Hope was a card that did a very similar role, but now that you've got Thought Knot Seer, True Name Nemesis, being able to be taken down quite a few pegs with a Plague Engineer, it's tough to choose the Planeswalker. Of course, it also trades with Goyf, so it does a great job handling small creatures and trades in for a big one. Just an incredibly powerful effect. Death and Tentacles. An interesting evolution of the Death and Taxes strategy. It's really directly descendant from the colorless Eldrazi builds, more so than Death and Taxes, but it does get some of the powerful tools that Death and Taxes has. We saw the Palace Jailer there, becoming the Monarch, exiling a creature. Solid card to put in off of Show and Tell versus most of the Show and Tell decks as well, so good versus a variety of decks. Adding a color to an otherwise colorless deck does give it quite a lot of sideboard options. We'll see if Eldrazi ends up with other color splashes in the future. I don't know how cutesy his list is. I have seen people, we got Once Upon a Time here leading things out. I have seen people jamming Containment Priest with Eldrazi Displacer. That is adorable. Blinking out your opponent's creature every time, and it does not come back thanks to the Containment Priest. That is all available in white. We've got a Thought-Knots here coming out early thanks to Mox Diamond and Eldrazi Temple. And it sees... Is that Abrupt Decay that he grabbed? It looks like an Abrupt Decay. Let me know if I got that one wrong. We have a Brainstorm into a fetch, getting rid of some cards, and Fatal Pushing. Taking out that 4 mana card for 1 mana with Fatal Push. That card does an incredible amount of damage for 1 mana. The Sanctum Prelate here, cast at 2. That's going to stop that Angarth's Rampage. And now a Chalice at 1. So 1 and 2 mana spells not going to be available unless they are creatures. Baleful Strix is technically a creature. Oh, and Goyf sure the heck is a creature. Wow. Real pivot here. And the way that this deck played out for game number 3, this is some aggression. 7 power on board. This is just 2 or 3 turns. That Karakas can technically bounce the Leovold, but at the cost of a card every activation. Tarmogoyf and Baleful Strix turning sideways. Phyrexian Revoker comes down. And there's a Thalia. The Death and Taxes part of the deck. Ponder's thrown out there by Pile, but the Chalice does deny it. Tarmogoyf, gigantic here. Up to a 4/5. Turning sideways. We've got a chump block happening. Fill down to 9. Now he may need to block with Thalia and bounce it back to his hand. Oh, and he chumps with Thalia. I don't know if he saw that line. He could have bought himself quite a bit of time by blocking with Thalia, bouncing it back to his hand, then recasting it. Oblivion Ring, exiling temporarily, but we got Baleful Strix and Leovold. The Sanctum Prelate, chump blocks, and this is getting grim. Leovold getting bounced. Even without Leovold on board, these Baleful Strixes will wrap it up in just a couple of turns. Once Upon a Time is digging for answers, but not a lot of mana to work with. It finds a Thought-Knots here. That will not win this race. Ooh, Umezawa's Jite. And we've got a concession from Phil there. Pile with just all the answers right down to the end. Looked like maybe Phil would be able to turn things around with the Jit and an able body, but no such luck. Pile pulling this one out in 3. That is all for this one, but don't worry, there is a lot more. You can check out our older videos, and we're always putting out new videos from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Massachusetts. If you want to help the channel, of course, you can like, subscribe, share, tap that notification bell so you can know the next time our new videos come out. Thanks for watching.